I see you went inside. Is it maybe your Wi-Fi?
I don't know. I just plugged into the hard drive thing.
I'm on the phone with Yvonne. Yvonne, can you see her?
Yeah, I can see both of you guys.
Okay.
From my iPad.
She's calling in now, she says.
Okay.
From her iPad.
All right.
I don't see you calling in yet. It still says open seat.
Laura, did you go in the same way you did before? Or did you have to
know what I did? Like Tennie and Yvonne and I were all talking, and then Connie went away. Then Connie came back and was talking.
I couldn't see anybody.
And we could see you, and we were all talking, but you were talking, and then we all got dumped.
Well, when you got off and came back in, how did you get in?
Just now.
Yvonne and I kept searching your name, and it didn't show anything. And then all of a sudden, it said Connie Stapleton started a new blab. I got a little notice, and we clicked on
that. Tell her she can go to this. She can go to my Facebook.
No, we still have an open seat, and it doesn't show you.
I can't. I'm calling, and it's saying nobody's answering. Let me try it from my phone, so that means don't have to.
I'll hang up.
That's crazy.
Okay.
Why does this have to happen like this?
Yeah, I
don't know. Why tonight? I couldn't have been like on a Frank and Yvonne and Laura night.
I'm going to pretend I'm not dying.
We're not dying. We're all still alive.
Yep, that's true.
So if you can go to her Facebook page.
All right. So, Laura. While we're talking, we might as well talk about food addiction, right?
Yeah, let's talk about it. I have a huge book here.
Go to my Facebook page.
I did. What's your Facebook page?
Connie Stapleton.
Connie Stapleton, yeah.
Okay. Oh my God.
No PhD or anything else?
Okay.
So sorry. God, I don't know this stuff happened.
We've never had this problem. That's all right. It'll be all right.
All right. We'll all live.
Everybody post on Facebook what's going on. We'll be all right. She'll be back.
Link.
We'll resume.
Having difficulty.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Jamie. I know you're back again. It's like a party.
Right. That's right. We're having a party. All right. I think we'll be all right. All right, Laura, thank you. I was outside. I know. I don't hope that's not the problem. I've done that before.
I know you had. But I kept getting on our pictures, it would say poor internet connection, and the face would go away, and it would be only audio. So maybe it was Wi-Fi. I don't know.
I see her up there. I see her up there. I see her. We're up there.
You see me?
She just needs to go on that square and call in. I see that she's here.
Yeah, she's just talking.
Yay! Hi, Debbie. Hi, Jamie. Who else is here? Robert.
Can you see?
I thought I was watching.
There. Oh, we're getting
there. Am I here?
God.
Somebody?
Hello.
I
hear you.
I hear you. I see you. You look very beautiful, both of you.
Just want to make sure.
Oh, God. All right. Am I sweating like to death?
Yeah, Cromer Firefox, yeah.
Can I bring Cam in this way? Make this person a co-host. Maybe I'll just make her a co-host.
Are we going to try anything?
I made her a host.
Well, good. She can do that too.
We just can't see her. All right.
We appreciate it. Sorry about it.
Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. All right. So, while we're getting Tennie back on, say something about food addiction, y'all. So I can compare myself.
Okay. There's this great book. No.
Go ahead. Talk about the book.
So in my book club, it's called Laura's Book Club on Facebook. I literally devoured this in the last week, and I did 55 videos. So if you ever wanted to learn anything about me, I think I talked about everything possible. But I went through her book and did all of the exercises. I did a video on almost all of the sections. And it's all I can say is wow. Amazing. Amazing, amazing. And this is from, like, I've been to OA. I've done 12-step. I've been in Celebrate. I've been in the programs. And the thing I love about it is if you're familiar with all those programs, she talks about them and she covers them. But the thing I love about Tennie the most is she gets down and dirty. She doesn't let you live in your excuses. And the book is kind of written that way. There's a lot of case study in it where she shares about clients and the experiences and what they went through. And I love it because she literally gives you the food program that Shades of Hope, her treatment center, uses. She gives you the exercises. And the whole time I was reading the exercises, I remember them all being on the show. I remember them beating the pillow. I remember them laying on the paper and outlining their bodies. So everything, if you ever watch that show, is all in this book, broken into an activity you can literally do.
Very cool.
I believe the show is there is a place online you can watch it, because I know I linked one of the shows to a blog post of mine about where somebody was going through withdrawal from food. Because people, are quick to say, food is not an addiction. Well, yeah, watch this woman who was just fast taken off of junk food and sugar, and like 3 hours she's been over cramping, puking. Yeah. There's no withdrawal, and I try to explain that to people that have weight loss surgery, because, not only do they go through immediate caffeine withdrawal, because if they have been drinking coffee, they're going to take you off of it there, during surgery or right after surgery. And so you're going to deal with some of those feelings. And so many people have no idea why. They'll say your hormones are there. There's withdrawal, it happens.
Absolutely. And food addiction is so real. There's a difference between physiological addiction and psychological addiction. There are process addictions and there are substance addictions. And a process addiction might be food or eating, whereas alcohol and drugs are substance addictions. But anything that is a problem for a person, they know that it's causing problems in their life in many different areas. They want to stop and yet they can't stop.
Yeah.
That's an addiction.
Yeah.
So on the front of the book, I have a Post-it note that says physical, mental, and emotional. Because in the book, Tennie talks about that there are 3 types of food addiction. There's the physical, the emotional, and the mental. And I posted on my Facebook page. And for anybody that doesn't know, I'm bariatric regain Laura Preston. I posted a video that I dug through YouTube and found from Tennie that talks about gastric bypass and talks about weight loss surgery and how, most people, if you go to an OA meeting or you go to a 12-step program, a lot of times you can sit in an OA meeting and people, it depends on the meeting and the people there, but a lot of times when you say the word weight loss surgery, people freak out. A lot of people don't accept it. A lot of people don't. Sometimes it doesn't mix well in the crowd. But when I was reading through and doing Tennie's book and walking through it, I found Tennie's YouTube video and I posted on my Facebook page where Tennie talks about weight loss surgery, and she talks about the fact that, with my gastric bypass, I dealt with my food addiction in a physical way by having my surgery. But if I didn't do the work and if I didn't find my why, that surgery will fail me. And before we dumped off the last one, Tennie was talking about her surgery and eating around her surgery. But I literally, on the front of your book, Tennie, had the Post-it note, physical, mental, and emotional. And I think everybody thinks that they're going to have weight loss surgery and it's going to be the answer. They think that's going to be their higher power. And that is just a tool in your toolbox.
And I'm glad to hear you say that. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Okay.
Yeah. Thank God. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. One of the things is that, and I want to congratulate the two of you. I understand that you've had the surgery and you both have been successful with it. The people that I see, because of, the nature of what I do, we see people that it does not work for them. It doesn't mean that it wasn't successful. It meant that they didn't follow directions. We can't continue to do what we always did. The surgery is a tool, and I am absolutely for it as long as people are more educated And maybe they are today. I don't know. But one of the things, I had a group of doctors here in Abilene come to me many years ago when bariatric surgery was, really getting kind of popular. And they wanted us to do the psychosocials and to see if the person was appropriate for the surgery. And what I told those guys, I said, y'all could make yourself famous if you would do two things, and that is treat this, encourage your clients to treat, or patients, I call them clients, they were patients, but to encourage your patients to treat the mental and emotional side before the surgery, have the surgery, and then your treatment after it. And continue, that on that path of, the surgery, that takes care of the physical. But if we don't, look at what's underneath that's driving that, and I've seen many of them either eat through it or switch to a different addiction. We've got them here right now. We've probably got 4 or 5 that have eaten through it, or they're now alcoholic. It changes the metabolism, and it doesn't take much, and particularly for a woman and man with the surgery, the metabolism changes, and like that, they can become alcoholic or have problems with alcohol. And then what we also see is love and sex addiction. If a person like me, I was overweight all of my life and never had a slender body in my life. And by the grace of God, I had lost weight before I married my second husband. And, we joked years later, I did not know he was an alcoholic because I didn't see him drink that much. And he didn't know that I was a fat girl because I'd lost weight. And, after we got into the marriage 2 or 3 months, the joke was on both of us. I'd married a drunk and he'd married a fat girl because he could not stop drinking and I started back eating. So we were both addicts of a different sort. And, I'm sure that there are people who have had the surgery. The ones that I see that are successful are the ones doing the ads on TV. That's my exposure to success with bariatric surgery. So I am very glad to see you two on here that it's been successful for you. And I would like to hear more about what you do. Have you had any problems with it? Have you had problems, in your marriage, in your coupleship? Those are the problems that we see come up.
Yeah.
With the clients that we.
Well, Connie, if I can.
Go ahead.
Was 15 years ago, and Tennie, you are like my hero. So I am so excited to get to see you at least on here.
Thank you.
I got to on the phone one time, but now I got to see you on video. But I didn't see any other post-ops, and so because there was no aftercare, there were no groups, so I just assumed that once I lost the weight that I was supposed to keep it there and not gain it back. And plus I didn't see anybody else, so I didn't know anybody gained it back. So I was kind of, because I didn't know any better. So once I found out about that, I volunteer full time, giving back to the people, that have had the surgery, and so does Laura, and Connie too. We all in it all the time. And it's amazing the degrees of addiction, because the way I compare it is like there's some people that end up in your place that are so bad and like have done some of the things like you said, taking all the laxatives and all that. And I run across those people. But then there's also the ones that didn't, their addiction wasn't quite as serious. And I'm thinking maybe that's what my situation is, that I did a lot of personal work with addiction, but I also know that I never took 120 laxatives. So I sort of make it like, you've got the alcoholic that maintains his family and goes to work, but he's still an alcoholic. And then you've got the alcoholic that's under the bridge. And so I look at the people that have the really hard time with this as sort of being the guys under the bridge. Does that make sense to you at all?
It does. Now, sometimes I hesitate to say how severe I got in bulimia, because we very seldom get anyone that's severe. What usually we get here are people that were morbidly obese, had the surgery, lost massive amounts of weight, could not keep it off, started eating it, and then that their primary is, binge eating or compulsive overeating, whatever the term people, it's all the same to me. And then we get food addicts. A food addict to me is different than, can be somewhat different than just a binge eater, because your food addict is addicted to specific foods, like sugar was my addiction. I mean, I use sugar like my husband used alcohol. Sugar was my drug of choice. And so to be successful after treatment, I made a commitment to give up sugar. So a lot of people are willing to look at it like that, what I'm for is whatever works for a person. There are so many different ways, I believe, to treat, eating disorders and morbid obesity, and I'm for whatever works, because, goodness, none of us know all the answers. We're hard to know what the questions are, let alone the answers, and but I just see so many. And another thing that we see is quite frequently is people will have the surgery because they're morbidly obese, and then they will lose the weight, and then they get to looking good, and maybe they've never looked good in their life, and they get to feeling frisky, and they, go out into the community, raping and pillaging. No, not really, but I mean, they begin to, maybe they've never farted in their life, and they get to be about a 13, 14-year-old for a while. And if they're married, it can cause problems in that marriage. Those are the problems that we see coming here. And then they'll also, a lot of times that particular client will also get into loving the compliments and loving feeling thin, that they'll go to the other side, to anorexia. Never had an anorexic moment in their life until they started losing through the bariatric surgery. Or they'll get into exercise. We get many that are exercise bulimics, that have, had surgery, lost all their weight, and then can't lose them. They want more. The people that we see, it's kind of like I am. I've always been addicted to more. Whatever it is, give me more of it. And I was still. I went to Overeaters Anonymous in '72 after I had the surgery and had lost the weight. And it was just starting here in town. And, when I got there, most of them I knew because, we'd made the rounds of the diet doctors, with the pills and take off pounds sensibly. I knew most of them through my, my obesity history. And what I heard when I walked in there from those people is, well, what are you doing here? You've had the surgery, and what, they don't understand, and they're getting to understand more, that no surgeon can cut out that mental obsession, that compulsion to eat. That is a mental and emotional and a spiritual problem. I believe any addiction is a spiritual problem, in that we lose ourselves inside the addiction. We make it the God of our understanding, and then in recovery, we can make losing weight and looking good another out of our understanding. So I think it's a threefold disease, and people treat it like that. We've had many successes through here that have had the surgery, ate through it, came here, treated the mental and emotional side, and are doing wonderful today. But it is that I think it is an inside job.
Tennie, one of the reasons that I've been friends with Yvonne and Laura for so long is because they really grasp this whole mental, spiritual, emotional connection. And the reason that I do weight loss surgery evaluations is because I have that addiction background. So I made a series of videos that I have patients watch. They're required to watch them before I will see them, because they need to understand. And just like you were saying, if those surgeons near where you live would have done this, I do 5 pre-op videos, 5 post-op videos, and suggest that most people come back and see me or somebody else. And I tell them right up front, weight loss surgery will not fix this obsession, will not fix these
Yeah.
other issues.
One of the
Absolutely.
things we do here, not everyone needs full 42 days treatment. But what I've been doing for 29 years is a 6-day intensive once a month. And my daughter that was recovering anorexic, she's my co-therapist, and we do that together. It's a 6-day intensive that is focused on those core issues. And we've had people come in for that for many, many, many years. And some of them will do one a year or one every other year. If they see themselves, what I say recovery is about we get on a path of recovery. And then we can take little side roads along the way. We want to forget that we might have the problem and want to dabble in other addictions. And so I see recovery is about just stepping back on the track. There's no perfection in it. We're not looking for perfection. We're looking for a little progress every day,
Yeah.
Your 6-day intensive, I'm really curious about that because I have a very good friend who had weight loss surgery about 8 years ago, was not a drinker at all, has now 2 years of recovery in AA, and is coming to your 6-day intensive in a few weeks. So I'm super excited about that. Yeah, so tell us more about that 6-day intensive.
One of the things I would really like to do is to offer, we take this, and I've taken it to many studies. It's very portable. And when I do go somewhere else off campus to do it, I can actually do a 6-day in 4 days because we're there with them from morning till night. We stay in the same house or wherever we've rented the facility. And so they get the same amount of work as they do here for a 6-day. But anyway, one of the things I'd really like to do is to do some 6-day intensives for just bariatric patients because, we're not that unique and different, and yet we are. We've had a surgery, and so many people think it's an easier, softer way. I want to tell them, you've never had surgery if you think it's an easy way. There's nothing easy about it. But I got my life narrowed down that when I found out about that surgery, it's like I could not keep the weight off. I could lose it, but I could, and I was 289 pounds that, I couldn't play with my kids. I was so limited. I was an old woman at 26, 27 years of age. And so the surgery, I got it narrowed down. I was either going to have that surgery or kill myself. That was like my option. And when I had surgery, I knew the night before I had it, I knew that it was almost like God was speaking to me, get up off of this table. But I wanted what that surgeon offered, and that was hope of losing the weight and keeping it off. I had never been thin except that short time right before I married my husband. When I met him, we had a very short courtship. And the minute we got married, I went back to the eating. And so I wanted to be thin. And, there's so much more to life than being thin. But it's
really
that I thought that was everything. I thought if I could just get thin enough, my life would be wonderful. And it's so much more than that. So much more.
I think a lot of people think that. Laura, what's your experience? You work with a lot of people too who think when I lose the weight, I'll be happy.
Right. That was me. I lived in New York City. I was a vice president of a cosmetic company, and I had lost 100 pounds multiple times. And I had my gastric bypass in 2005, and Yvonne was the first person I met. So I'm 11 years out, and she was my very first person. So she's like my sponsor. She's my girl. But when I woke up in that hospital room, Tennie, I had made a pact, and I had written letters when I don't wake up, who's going to take my pugs, who's going to take my dogs, because I was terrified that, God wasn't going to let me wake up because I rearranged my body. And when I woke up, I took an oath that day that whatever it took, and my mission, and it's taken me 11 years to get to a place where I can do it full time, and I'm struggling doing it full time. But my mission was, if I figure this out, I want to be the person that I wish I would have met on the way there. I want to be the person that shares the ugly and the good and the bad, because I've been overweight my whole entire life. I've always been a 6'1" tall girl but I was 365 pounds and a vice president of a cosmetic company. Go figure that one out. So the work is real. And like you, after my surgery, I went to OA. I did 12-step. I did programs in the church. I did Celebrate Recovery. And I was always looking. And I love to hear you say that you want to do an intensive with bariatrics, because before you came back on, I was just talking about the food addiction piece, that with weight loss surgery, sometimes you go to OA and it's not a welcoming home because you had that surgery. So I think that dealing with food addiction after bariatric surgery is another whole animal. I put 50 pounds of Regain back on a couple years ago because I took this big crazy job and I lost myself. Like you said, you can find recovery, you can lose the weight, but you can lose yourself, and the priorities shifted. And it wasn't about my spirit, and it was about work and about the money and about the job. And yeah, and when I hit that identity, like my business card has that title again, and I'm thinner now, that 50 pounds came right back on my butt. And I just said, that's it. And I pulled the plug and I left that job and I started my own support group, and I left Chicago and I'm living in a little podunk, my Buffalo Gap in Michigan. It's called Niles. But I work with groups online, and I believe that it's 7 areas of your life. It's nutrition, it's fitness, it's your relationships, it's your finances. And when one of those is jacked up, I'm headed to sugar, And so our group, I have magical people in it. It's just getting people in it. We talk about vision boards. Like, I did your book and I did every exercise, and I did 55 videos about it in my book club. And I talk to everybody about what does your future self look like all those exercises in there. I took out my letters to my parents and I looked at what the values I grew up with and what does my future self look like and what does my recovery look like and what kind of person do I want to be. And I think when you're bariatric, you lose that weight and you do the crazy that you talked about. You drink, you party, you're skinny, look at me, you get all that attention. And when you put Regain back on, it's a whole nother game, because you had it, you tasted it, and now it's 10 times worse because now you're back where you were. So I would love it if you did programs just with bariatric patients, because I think when people experience Regain after having a surgery, they feel hopeless, like more hopeless than they felt going into the
shame and embarrassment, and how people will scan the body. Or they won't look you in the eye, or they'll look off, when you gain the weight. It's like the elephant in the living room, no one's talking about it. There's a lot of shame with that. When I decided to have the surgery, my medical doctor, he said, if you have it, you find yourself another medical doctor, not just for you, but for your kids and your husband, because I do not want to have to treat your orphan children and your wedded husband. He said that you will not live from that. Everyone in this community pretty much turned away from me, bless my heart. But it was so new. It was in 1972. People thought I had lost my ever-loving freaking mind, And I'll tell you, I would do it again. I would do it again, even knowing what I know today. If, I do believe, because I see that there are people that are getting their lives back. And when you weigh 300, 400, 500 pounds or 250 or whatever, and think about losing, and it is very healthy to do this, but to lose like a pound or 2 a week, it just feels hopeless for some of us, And so, but I do think we have to balance both. I think we have to treat it. I was talking to a mother today of a daughter that she has an eating disorder, and I told her, I said, I still do the very same things today that I've done for the last 31 years. And she said, you mean you're not well? I said, I live in wellness every day. But I can't forget that, that I have a disease called compulsive overeating, or I will go back to it. I have to be aware of it. I have to stay conscious with the food. I can go unconscious with the food. I don't anymore, but I certainly could if I, didn't continue to get around people in recovery, because I don't believe, I eat more normal today than I've ever eat normal, whatever normal is. But that mental obsession has been lifted, and that is a miracle for me. That compulsion, that mental obsession. But after,
I love Tennie that you talk about recovery is an everyday experience. It's not once and done. You do the surgery and no, recovery is an everyday effort, conscious. Do whatever you need to
and
do.
it can be fun. If recovery wasn't fun, why would we want to have it? Recovery, life is good. It is wonderful. And it's more than the number on the scale. But I'll tell you, I feel so much better at 139 pounds than I did at 289 pounds. I was so shy and bashful. I couldn't utter a sound. I couldn't even introduce myself. I was so shy. But I had been overweight all my life, like you, Laura, like you were saying, all my life, I never had known anything except obesity, an obese child, an obese teenager. And, boys don't like fat girls as a general rule. And I didn't have really much of a teenage life. So I would like to join y'all in your efforts to help bariatric patients. I mean, they really, they have my heart. And I've seen so many suffer through eating through it or, not allowing it to work for them because it does take work. It's not just a magic, it's not magical. You have to put forth some effort, I think. Everything change in our lives.
A couple other things that I really loved that you talked about in your book. I am a huge inner child. I do a 12-week class for people before and after surgery, and we talk about the losses and the grief and the childhood issues and the inner child. And I think that stuff is so, so, so very important, and I love how you talked about it in your book and gave it the emphasis that it deserves. And the spirituality part is so amazing, too. I love your description of all of that.
Well, thank you. And one of the things that I had to do a lot of work around is embracing. I separated myself as I lost the weight. I tried to separate myself from the 289 pound person. I wanted to disown that part of me. Well, that was me. Was very definitely a part of me, but I wanted to play like she never existed. And you can't get off half of yourself like that. So I had to embrace all parts of myself. Through recovery. And I believe in recovery, every relationship has got, when you take the food out of the equation, every relationship has to be renegotiated because when you begin to recover, you're available for a relationship. And what's been standing in the way before is the disease, is the addiction, is the overweight, and so when you're available, you got to have people that are there willing to engage in a relationship. So everything changes, I think, in recovery. And it changes for the better, but it's like we take 3 steps forward, 2 back, 3 forward, but there's progress along the way.
Absolutely.
I think one thing that I found fascinating, because I can remember years ago watching the show that you did with Oprah and then reading the books and all of those pieces, is that everybody's journey is so different. And the thing I love about this book, the second book, Shades of Hope, is how you shared so many stories about your clients, because all the way through the book, I grew up a happy little fat girl. Like, I went to every prom. All my girlfriends were the homecoming queens. I was the funny, loud one. Like, my childhood, I have amazing parents. I was raised in a loving home. There was no abuse. There was no pieces. And I've always felt like I don't have the Ricky Lake show. Like, I don't have the story. I ate because I was fat. Like, what is my story? And over the years, working through it and reading it, there were other elements. And one of the things I love so much about this book is the way it talked about that it might not be your family and it might not be your parents that were abusive, but the trickle down. I'm sitting at my mom's home right now, and she's a perfectionist. She's beautiful. She's amazing. Everything's perfect. She had a rough childhood. So she gave us everything. I played ballet. I did tap dance lessons, piano. I played in the band. So the levels what my issues were so different than what people that came from these terrible childhood was. So as I worked through the book, and thank God you shared so many stories, because I would find pieces of it, because I realized that my mom was the way she was because of the relationship with her family and the trickle down that came all the way through. Because I went through my weight loss surgery. I was a vice president in New York. I made a lot of money, and I was 365 pounds. I had a seatbelt extender in the bottom of my Louis Vuitton bag, you know, and everything was fine. I love the section in here where you said I was the lookism girl. Everything's fine. Everything's wonderful. Look at me. And I was so broke. I was so broken. And so I love in the book where you tell pieces of different clients, because I could find pieces of me. And I've never found that before working in addiction, because I never had that story. And it's just fascinating to me that when you work in addiction and you're in recovery and you're going through the motions, how over the years it changes, how your life changes, and you have to keep coming back to it.
And one of the things is I had to give up being my story. That was my, because it was so bad, and everybody would bless my heart, Well, after a while, I believe we have to do the work in the childhood, get our history straight, do our grief work, our anger work, shame reduction. But after a while, it's like, so what? That happened. But now what? I'm a grown up today. I'm responsible for the good in my life and for the sorry state of my affairs. Whatever happens, I can't blame it on them anymore. I spent many years doing that. Another thing that I have been aware of that I have attempted to drop is, I don't care who I met or where I would meet them on an airplane or a social function, I would figure out how to work into the conversation. Well, after all, I used to weigh 289 pounds. I wanted people to know that so they wouldn't expect so much out of me today. Cut me some slack here. I mean, I used my being obese to my best advantage, and I didn't know at the time I was doing that. But I would hear myself saying, well, I used to weigh 289, and so it just almost kind of gave me a hall pass to, whatever I did today is all right, because after all, look how, pitiful I was at almost 300 pounds. So I've had to really become aware of that and just be one among the many and not have to be better than or less than. That was my identity, is to be more than as far as the weight, but feeling less than on the inside. Always comparing my insides to everybody else's outsides. Never measuring up.
I was going to ask, Tennie, do you see yourself anytime broadening your program for other places in the United States? Because just like Laura, we both get hundreds of emails, messages from people that regain, and we see all the things that, they'll talk about all that stuff, and they're the same people as your patients. And it just breaks my heart that I can't do more, and I also can't send them somewhere, because the help is out there, but food addiction is not even recognized by the medical community yet. I hope I'll live to see that. And I just wonder, are you going to try to expand your program to help others, or? My goal when I put in the center almost 30 years ago was to duplicate it in 5 or 6 places, in the United States. Well, I'll tell you, it's hard to run a treatment center. It's all we've been able to do to keep this one, up and running. Because, like you said, insurance doesn't pay for eating disorder treatment. And this is the reason, I was very hard-headed about short-term programs. I thought you had to do inpatient because that's what I did and worked for me. And so I did the 6-day really challenge of a doctor friend of mine in Dallas. He said, why don't you, because I was doing short-term programs for codependency. He said, why don't you do one for food addicts or for compulsive overeaters or people with eating disorders? And I said, because it won't work. I snarled at my nose, and no, because it won't work. And so he challenged me, and I did one, and it was all professionals. We had like 12 psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, counselors. They all had problems, but that was our first intention.
the hardest one I've ever done in my life, you know, because they all wanted to leave the deal. But anyway, from that, I thought how short-term programs could be effective for some people. So I would love to do them more. And one of the things I've always dreamed of is having a training program where we train people to do the 6 days. I'm very particular about, I've worked hard to put the program together. And it is very, you know, just like Connie, you two women have, you know, have put together your programs. And what we do works. It is such, it's laid out in the way that, you know, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. But I'd really like to, you know, train people, you know, where they could do it in different parts of the country. Our problem is we've never done any marketing. We've done very little. Well, we just now hired a marketer, and otherwise we've always done just word of mouth until we did the Oprah show. And one of the things about Oprah, and I'm not being critical of her at all, but she pulled the show. Y'all know that she just had it for one season. And her reason was it's too dark. It's a dark subject. It needs to be more fun and light. Well, you know, what I wanted to tell Oprah, and I did, I said, you know, look at yourself. You've never wanted to look at your own eating disorder, you know. And, you know, she was talking about weight loss and about how good the food is. And, you know, and she's talking about it today through Weight Watchers and how you can eat all of this, but then do the points. And if that works for people, get after it. That it's much broader than just you know, just the food. And I think there are people who do not have like an eating disorder, and the ones you can tell that don't, they gain for whatever reason 50, 60 pounds. You know, maybe new meds, maybe they had a baby or whatever, and they can go to Weight Watchers and lose it one visit or maybe twice. But the ones who chronically gain it back and gain it back and gain it back, I would suspect do have an eating disorder. But they, you know, so many people don't want to look at it like that. But anyway, that's the business I'm in, and I do see so many people recover. So to answer your question, yes, I wish we could duplicate it and offer it to more people. You know, I've taken it to Savannah, I've taken it to Atlanta or North Georgia Mountains in Atlanta. I've taken it to, in fact, we're going to do one up in Seattle in July, end of July. Wow. So it's very portable. But I would like to do one with just bariatric patients, because I do think that is, we do have some problems that are, you know, it's not a, you know, our own little private club, but I do think that we do have some issues that we don't, you know, that other people have no idea, you know, that, you know, things that have gone on with our bodies. I don't know if y'all have ever talked about or if you've ever heard of that syndrome. It's called BADAS, the acronym BADAS. You ever heard of it? Well, it's a bowel syndrome. Yes. And those of us that had the early surgery, and the second year after having the surgery, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and have had it ever since the surgery, but it would come an episode. So I have suffered from ever since I had that surgery, well, it actually started in 73, up until a few years ago. And it would come in an episode, and it would look like high fever, 103, 104. My joints would all, swell, and I would break out in a pimple on my shoulders and on my hips. And no rheumatologist could ever figure it out. I finally went down to Scott and White here in Texas. It's a very well thought of facility. And I had a woman there that was a rheumatologist. She said, "Have you ever had those bugs biopsied?" And I had said no. And she said, "The next episode you have, you'll have a biopsy by a dermatologist," which I did. About a month later, and the young man who had just started to work there, and, you know, I believe there is a God, and I've been praying for answers. Because I was getting deathly ill with this syndrome. Anyway, that was the last thing he studied in medical school. And he said, the doctor that was his professor said you'll probably never see cases like this because it's in people that had early intestinal bypass surgery, and most of them have not lived past 55. So you'll probably never have a case of it. And he diagnosed it. And from that point on, I was getting ready to have stomach surgery because of my stomach. Just so many complications. And when I had not had an episode actually since the end of November this in 15. I've been deathly ill, but now there's periods of time that I'm very healthy. But that 3 or 4 days, I think about the third time I was on the Dr. Oz show, I could feel that episode coming on, and I told Cam, she was traveling with me, and I said, you're going to have to get me back to the hotel. And she said, well, why? And I said, I'm sick. And I had to get a wheelchair to get me out. So anyway, I'm only saying this to say, if I had it, there may be other people out there that suffer from it who don't know anything about it. And they have seen it crop up in other people that have had the later surgeries. So it's something to talk about. And no one likes to talk about it because of the shame of having the surgery in the first place, I think. The complications, it's like we brought it on ourselves.
You know, Cam, I'm thinking as you're talking about how horrible that is and what a God thing that experience was, but how I'll bet between the three of us and a few other people in the community, we could get some intensives with weight loss surgery patients lined up. If it's portable, like you said.
I will go somewhere and do it. My daughter Kim is my co-facilitator, and she travels with me. I wouldn't attempt to do one without her because it's not talk therapy, it's experiential, and so it's hard. I call it down and dirty. We get right down into that core pain, and we see people get a lot of relief through it. So, yeah, I'd be very interested in doing that.
That would be great. Guys, got to get our thinking caps on. Just somebody did want to know, Tennie, does insurance pay for any of the 6D intensive, or are they still not going there?
What we'll do is we will help file the insurance, but they have to file it. We can't, and I believe some of them have been reimbursed, but we don't do that. We're not that biggest facility in the first place, but they pay it up front, and then I believe some of them have had some reimbursement, but by and large, insurance companies don't want to pay for anything, right now, considering, the food or except they will pay for the surgery, and that's a good thing. But I just wish they would pay for pre and post therapy.
Listen, I'll tell you what, if I could talk to the insurance companies, I'd be like, listen, require 3 months of pre and I don't know how you require post, but require some education, psychoeducation, interpersonal therapy,
Yeah, require that. That's what I really tried to get those docs to do. And, and they had lots of patients, did lots of surgery, and then they got into some lawsuits. And so neither one they quit their practice and are no longer in town. But I do believe that if, maybe I'm just pretty ignorant about, what's really out there. There may be some docs that are working in conjunction with, therapists. I don't know them yet. I'm out on it.
It's gotten much better. And these videos that I made, I finally had a professional version made, and I do sell them to bariatric programs around the country. But I'll tell you what, people are not knocking on my door to get them. The patients are, but the doctors aren't.
Yeah.
And I'm fighting the battle. I'm trying to get in more and more and more.
I hate to admit it, but I do think it had a lot to do with the money. A lot of money. I think it's
absolutely, without a doubt.
This is one of the things that are you familiar with what's come out with The Biggest Loser, and Manny Cahill and the research that they've done about, yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I do, yes. I heard it on the news recently.
Danny is a friend of mine, and I did talk to him. I called him the next day or 2 or 3 days after he was on those shows. And, of course, the conversation, one of the things that, and I told Danny, I said, I'm going to talk about this every chance I get, because one of the things that Danny has never, ever done, and that is treated his eating disorder. It's just all been about the weight loss. And there's so much more than that. And I do believe if, when they're saying that those people that tested out of 14, only one of them kept the weight off, it's because she followed instructions. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out.
That's right. That's what I tell people. When I went to treatment, I went to an intensive outpatient treatment program, and they told me, do this, and this, and I did those things, and by God, if it didn't work.
It just hurts my heart with The Biggest Loser, because Allie Vincent, one of the ones that's been really public and had a ton of shaming about gaining her weight back, and the Entertainment Tonight, everybody picked her up, and now she's signed up with some online diet something. Her mom had a lap band, and I remember meeting her at an obesity help conference. Her mom's name was Sue. They went on The Biggest Loser together. And it just breaks my heart because it's a game show. They all go on there and they go to crazy extremes, crazy workouts, crazy everything to win the money, win the game. And, they're sequestered, they're locked up. And then, I auditioned for it. I went through 4 or 5 cuts for it before I had surgery. I was so desperate to do anything. And I'm so grateful and thankful that my mouth and my tallness and my craziness didn't get me anywhere near there, because I would have failed miserably. I would have been competitive. I would have been that loud, crazy girl. And I probably would have lost a great big chunk. And I would have been just like every Weight Watcher game. It'd have been just like every other thing I'd done before. And when you read these stories, it breaks my heart, because these people went to these extremes, lost this weight, tasted that success, and then went back to the reality. It's like reading in her book. And when she talks about, you got to renegotiate every relationship, you got to renegotiate your families, your households, how people treat you at work, your job, your social circles, to come off that Biggest Loser and go back home in Indiana or somewhere and have to face everyday life with nothing emotional or mental. You're set up to fail from the beginning, the very get-go.
And I've been there where, and like you have too, Laura, where we've lost the weight and then gained it back. I mean, it is the most demoralizing thing I believe that there is to lose it and get all those compliments, and everybody wants to know how you lost it. And, people at church would go on every diet that I'd on. I'd go on those 500 calorie a day diets, and I could lose the weight, but immediately start gaining the weight back. When I would hit 139, I start the weight gain back. And what we call that is a sexual barrier weight. And a lot of people, when they reach a certain number on the scale, if they were really, and I'm not saying everyone has been sexually abused, but if they begin to explore what was going on in their life at the time that they weighed that, I weighed 139 when I was in the first grade. And that's when the sexual abuse with my dad started. And so every time I would hit that, I bounce off of it, I'll go back up, And so I finally had that pointed out by a doctor friend of mine, the one that encouraged me to do the 6-day intensive. And so I had to start looking at the abuse at that point, And once I could do that, then I could get down and not have to bounce back up. But the weight was a real protection for me. One thing, it kept my dad away from me, and that he didn't like fat women. And after I gained massive amounts of weight, at 13, he started leaving me alone. So anyway, it just involves a lot of different things in our lives, and affects a lot of different areas.
And I think,
and that's why I think the exercise you did, I did my life map, all 45 years of it, with my markers and my colors. And that was a huge aha for me too, because, I could see patterns. And for me, it's always been my job and my work and those New York City, flying across the country worlds, and that identity I had, where I felt the most anger, where I felt the most. And when I was getting out those markers and doing my colors, it was like a little graph appeared, and I thought,
was
there you go.
had
Why
some
didn't I do this
criticism,
11 years ago?
not really
You know?
criticism, but more observation about me putting so much in the book about what we do here. And I said, you know, if it will help one person, why wouldn't I do it? You know, why wouldn't I do that? And so maybe you're that one person, Lauren. You know, maybe.
And I'll probably cry because I can tell you in my groups, like I read your first book and I read the life map and I've been to 12-step programs and courses of miracles and I've sought out, I'm like the little sponge girl that wants to learn. And I've always been the one that will plow through your book, Tennie, or any book, and I'll do it later. And when Connie reached out to me and said, do you know Tennie? And I'm like, oh my God, I love her. And she asked me to sit in on this. I said, I'm doing her book for book club and I am going to dissect it. I'm going to rip it apart. I'm going to lay on the floor and trace my body. I'm going to do all of it. I'm going to put a paper bag on my head. And I physically did every function of it. And I did the videos with it. And it was life changing. And I've set in so many different things and so many programs and so many pieces that, you know, you can put it all in here. But if it's like everything else, if we don't do the work, it's not going to matter. You got to get to your bottom.
You know, the other people, you know, they learn from each other, from their peers, because it'll bring up, you know, their different issues, you know. And so, yeah, I love doing anything at the center, but yeah, I'm pretty much retired from the center. I go to staff meetings and I keep up with every client there, you know, to the best of my ability. Well, I do keep up with them. I know what's going on. But I love doing those 6-day intensives. And, you know, and some of them come in and do an intensive, and then we'll recommend inpatient treatment because we see, you know, they need more than what we can give them in the 6th day. And some stay and some don't, but at least they have a realization of where they are. You know, because each person has to diagnose themselves. We can't. You know, we can look at their psychosocial economy, you know, we can look at all of the information and pretty well diagnose them, but it doesn't matter what, as professionals, what we say, it's what the patient, the client internalizes. They've got to say, I've got this deal and I want to treat it. Otherwise, they never will. You know, they keep looking for some outside answers. You know?
What I've been focusing on most recently, you know, through all the work I've done personally and all the reading and just the patients that I've worked with in the last 25 years in addiction and recovery, but specifically in this weight loss surgery community, is it's all about healing the relationship with self. Any recovery from any addiction is about healing that relationship with yourself and making contact with with God, you know, and I think that is the bottom line. And that's why they have to diagnose themselves, and they have to believe it.
Because it is about the loss of self. We lose ourselves inside the addiction.
Yeah. And, you know, once you start healing that relationship with self, then you can start healing that relationship with food, which is a relationship, and the relationships with your spouses and your children and your families and your neighbors and, you know, everybody.
Because the food
is
you know, we do have to begin to have a relationship with the food. And, you know, when I went through treatment, I was, you know, what we call a 2-minute shoveler. I just shoveled food in. Never gave myself an opportunity to feel full. I just wanted to get in there, you know. And now I am the last one finish eating. I don't care who I eat with. I'm the last one because I've learned to just not shovel the food in and to enjoy the moment and enjoy the taste of food. You know, food is not the enemy. There's no good or bad food. Food is just food. It's just, you know, kind of like that meme. I mean, food is, you know, and so it's not, you know, but we've made the weight and the food and all so much more than it is. But if we don't look at it, we've got to look at it and, you know, and begin, you know, find out a way to feed ourselves appropriately, you know. And I know that there's probably challenges with the different types of surgery that people are having today and how, you know, some of them can, you know, and I'm sure y'all have experienced this more than I have, about them stretching out the stomach. It is absolutely possible. Have y'all seen that?
Yep, sure is.
Yeah. But I also know that people think it's stretched out a lot of times, and it's just them overeating and pushing because it's a muscle, and it will contract back. And I just think it's another, like you say in your book, it's another excuse. It's another, it's broke. I need a revision. I'm not a revision girl. I'm not a big fan. Like, you abused your tool. Why is it going to be different this time? Have you done the work with your surgeon, and have you done your, recovery? Have you taken your vitamins? Have you, done all those pieces? But I think what you said is so important, that it's a matter of self. There's times in the book where you're asking questions, and I'm sure people can't answer them. What do you want out of your life? How many people don't know because they don't know themselves? Some of those questions in the videos I did for every section of the book, I would say, write out the answers and come back. Like, start your life story and come back and keep adding to it. Like, get that journal and just keep adding to it, because I would think about that question. I'd lay in bed at night and I'd be like, okay, now I have an answer, or I want this. And I think people they're always worried about their husbands and their wives and their kids and their parents, that they have no sense of self. We filled those holes for all those years with the sugar and the food and the junk, that your sense of self, I can't imagine working at Shades and being in that 6th day when you ask people questions. I'm sure they can't even answer it because it's the first time in their life that it's ever been about them.
Right.
Yeah. I can't, the work's got to be amazing, because not only is it about self, but for me, it's about accepting today. It's about, at 50 pounds, when I gained back that 50 pounds, I thought, okay, but I still have 100 off, so I can turn it around. It's, what is your reality today? Get on that scale. And if it's 200, 250, 300, I love myself today.
We're really big
period.
Affirmations. And I know,
so
people sometimes think they're silly and all, but I'll tell you, they absolutely work, because we've got to retrain the brain. It's the most magnificent the computer that God ever made, but we've got to retrain that. And we've told ourselves many times how bad, awful, and wrong we are. Now we're going to have to switch it and do, put some positive things in there. And we gave them an assignment to write, come up with 50 affirmations, short, very short, positive affirmations, and to look. And this actually came from Louise Hayes, but to look in the dark part of your eye 5 times a day and read those 50 affirmations. And if we can get people to do that for 2 weeks, you can see amazing results. This wants to work for us. It really does.
Yeah.
It's funny.
I trained my brain by not eating sugar, because I made a deal that I wasn't going to eat more than 8 to 10 grams at a time. And so it's so funny, because I drank Coke so much before I had surgery that when my friends found out I was having surgery, they weren't saying like, oh my God, you're going to have your guts rearranged. They were saying, oh my God, you're going to not drink Coke anymore. And it's like, I'm withdrawing my stock, from Coke, because it's about to go down, because Yvonne's going to stop drinking Coke. And now, to this day, I don't even remember what it tastes like, and I don't remember why it was so important to me. And I'm sure that if I tasted it now, I just wouldn't even go there, because I eat very boring. I know that may be different from, the way other people do it, but I can't afford to have sex on a plate anymore. So I just have boring food that's good for me, and I eat a lot of the same stuff, and I don't need it to be any more than that. I try to find happiness in other parts of my life instead.
That's what I say, tell clients all the time. You don't need to have an orgasm with the food. Food is food. Just eat it. And and not to have a hurrah with it. And there's over 240 different wonderful foods that we can choose from. And I believe each person has to make a decision what their body can tolerate. I could tolerate wheat. I could do, and I had a doctor friend, a beloved friend of mine in Atlanta, that I had problems with my stomach, and she kept trying to get me to go off the gluten. She said, I don't think you can successfully eat gluten. And I said, I've never been allergic to anything except, overeating. I just want more. I want more. But anyway, they were going to do surgery. a retract of my surgery, and there's not any doctors that would do it because they were afraid I wouldn't live through the surgery. But I did find a doctor, and I had it scheduled, and my friend Kathy said, Tennie, will you get off of gluten for 30 days? Just give it 30 days. And I did. My stomach is fine. I do not eat any gluten. I can tell if I get a trace. I have to be very careful. Sometimes it'll show up in like salad dressing. I mean, it's in so many different things, and I can tell immediately if I've gotten a trace of it. And there'll be times that I will want to eat something that I know is going to hurt my stomach, but I make an intention to do that. And I don't do it in secret. That's the thing about, I think, so many people with eating disorders are very secretive. We're sick as we are secret, and we flip around and do things. So, if I'm going to have a cheeseburger, and I may have it once a year or twice a year, it's not going to be no healthy cheeseburger. I want a greasy old cheese, it won't be real big. I eat it and I enjoy it, and then my stomach, I suffer the consequences later. But then I'm overdone with it. I don't tell a lot of people that because I don't subscribe to, I don't think that's just a real healthy food plan, but I do that occasionally, about once or twice a year, but then I pay for it. So but I'm like you, Yvonne, I eat very boring food. I eat basically the same. Well, I eat the food plan over shade. There's something, there's a good, that's one of the good things about owning your own treatment center. I have Meals on Wheels. They bring my meals to me. Then I have a dear friend that lives on the corner, and she cooks for the 6th day, and she cooks for me. So I have people who cook for me. I haven't cooked a meal in probably 2 years. We raised 7 kids, and I cooked a lot, and that was my love language, was feeding people and cooking and making elaborate meals. I don't do that anymore. I don't do it. I had to find another way to show love without food.
I'm gonna.
I tell you, Tennie, we could do this for hours and hours and hours, and we've already taken up enough of your time. But I got to tell you, your experience, your personally, professionally, and your wisdom, have meant so much to so many, and our lives have touched peripherally and here and there, and I am just so grateful to have met you and for you to be here with us tonight. And hopefully we can work collaboratively, like you said, and get some people who have had weight loss surgery to work on some of those deeper issues and some of the
what I say, if it doesn't get on the calendar, it never happens. It's just kind of a dream. But if we can make a commitment and get something on the calendar, it'll make. So let's think about it, and y'all get back with me, and let's do this, because I would love to be more help in the bariatric surgery community, because I've been there, done that. I know when
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And Laura and Yvonne, you guys, I know I met you both. You were 2 of the first people I met when I came into this community at 10, 11, 12 years ago, whatever it was. And you both get the idea of recovery and what that means. And so having you both here was just right. And just, Laura, so appreciate you doing the book club. And Yvonne, you've been in recovery all the way.
Be somewhere, a girls' weekend.
Totally fun. I'm all about it.
Yeah.
That's what we'll do. That is what we'll do. Okay, ladies. For everybody who's joining us, thank you. And we will have this posted on YouTube, so many, many, many people will be watching this. Appreciate your time. Tennie, I will be in touch. Ladies, thank you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. You're just, if that's
Tennie,
that's why we do what we do. Thank you.
I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties, but so glad that it all got straightened out. Dreams come true. Dreams come true. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Thanks so much. Good night.
All right. Oh.